Let's jump to this story. We got big news. This was rather shocking from the post-millennial. Trump names Pete Hegseth to lead Department of Defense. Quote, I am honored to announce that I have nominated Pete Hegseth to serve in my cabinet as a Secretary of Defense. I was actually shocked.
I am shocked as well.
But I'm
very young guy.
I'm excited. He's a young guy, and
he's a vet, which is cool.
He's a vet. He's got real experience. Trump was just saying, take Liz Cheney and put her on the battlefield and see how quickly she regrets voting for these wars. So I'm excited to see this, and a lot of people are really excited. I want to give a shout out to this tweet here. This is great. This is from Bochi Red State, who said, I mean, sure, Pete Hegseth is an Ivy Leaguer with multiple tours who spent over 20 years in the military service before becoming a veterans advocate, but he didn't work for Raytheon and hire drag queens for recruitment, so is he really qualified?
Well, I guess not.
I'm seeing, shout out to our friends, the Krasensteins, our go-to liberals. They're like, Pete Hegseth is not smart enough to defend this nation. I can't believe it.
There's already, I didn't save it, but I saw a tweet by Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, and I hear rumors or whatever that Pete Hegseth will probably face resistance in the Senate.
That's
too
too bad.
Get to the Senate? Like, is he even going to get to the Senate? Like, Trump has been very pushing about this recess appointment.
Yes, I would love to see.
Each of the three guys who are on the secret ballot for Senate Majority Leader tomorrow have said, "Oh, sure, we'll do recess appointments, no problemo."
I would love to see.
How does that work?
Recess appointments is so if the Senate will say we're going to take a break for 5 to 7 days, and the president has the right to appoint whoever he wants while the Senate is on a break,
right.
And then that person doesn't have to go through confirmation hearings.
Yeah.
And then also, my understanding is if they don't appoint him, he can appoint an acting Secretary of Defense.
That's right.
So he can just basically
loopholes.
Yeah.
That's why during his first administration, you had acting, like Rick Grinnell was the acting. Whatever his job was. He had a lot of people who were acting such and such instead of actually having gone through the confirmation process because he decided he didn't want to have to push everything through you know what it is? It's not instant gratification enough for Trump. He wants his people
I would love
now.
I would love to see recess appointments because just because to get the results that Trump is looking to get, he's got 18 months. Mm-hmm. He's got to have everything ready to go on January 20th. He's got to have as much in place as possible. There's a lot of people that are complaining about the people that have been, floated for appointments. There are a lot of complaints about Marco Rubio. There's complaints about Kristi Noem and stuff. And I understand why they're complaining. That doesn't mean that I necessarily agree, but I understand why they're complaining. But one of the problems that Trump ran into in his first term was he was putting in people that weren't experienced, people that didn't have experience in government, people that didn't know how the government
worked. Didn't like him either, or snakes
that was
as well.
An issue as well.
Exactly. And so I think that the people that he's got that he's talking about putting in place, I mean, I'm not saying that I can predict the future, but they're likely to be more
loyal,
to be more loyal, and they're more likely to follow through with what Trump wants. He's got a very clear, very conservative, very Republican narrative plan. He wants to shrink the government. He wants to make serious cuts. This is what Republicans run on all the time. These people will face significant problems in their own elections if they don't follow through when they had the chance to help Trump. And I think that most of the people that are going to be appointed, I think that they're aware that the American people, they all saw the elections. They saw all that everything moved right. Even though it wasn't a massive swing, the fact that everything moved right, the fact that they picked up the House when they didn't think they were going to pick up the House. They picked up the Senate clearly. Trump won. They see I believe they will see the writing on the wall and will say, we need to do what we were elected to do, what the president was elected to do.
I think it's also important to know this is exactly why Project 2025 was a thing, was because when he first came in, right, the guy lived in New York. He wasn't a politician that lived in D.C., so he didn't have all these contacts. So we had to kind of put a lot of these establishment people into positions that he didn't necessarily always pick, right? Because he had a lot of help with that. So, and then a lot of these people, turned out being snakes. I mean, like Mike Pence, for example. So I think, as much as people talk smack about Project 2025, which I actually like it was a very valid response to issues.
Yeah.
Project 2025 didn't go far enough.
Yeah,
I mean,
they could have been cooler.
Well, no,
Or
I mean,
right.
we had Paul Dans on IRL, I think IRL and Culture War, and Project 2025. Certainly, it's a hodgepodge of varying ideas. So I'm half kidding when I say it doesn't go far enough, but I think their issues on like government bureaucracy was like defunding instead of dissolving.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here being like, well, that doesn't go far enough. You need to fire these people, not just take budgets away. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't think they're. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was Project 2025 for abolishing the DOA? I'm sorry, the DOE.
Yes.
They were for that.
100%.
Okay, all right. Well, then we're cool.
Yeah,
We're cool.
And you know, it's interesting
Department
because
of Education, not energy.
Yes. Exactly.
and I love how like in every single debate and every interview, all Kamala would say is, "Oh yeah, Trump is trying to bring in Project 2025," when he disavowed it like 10 times. So it's like, you know, I think Project 25, number one, valid and was a good response to the issues that he ran into with, you know, people not standing by him, people, you know, betraying him, etc. But the Democrats literally ran on saying that this is a far right plan that's going to make him become a dictator, etc. when he disavowed it multiple times. But, you know, when you actually look into why it was implemented, it makes sense.
Everything the left said about Donald Trump was ridiculous and bullshit.
Lies, dude.
Like
All lies.
They could have attacked him legitimately. They could have had criticized policies that he legitimately was talking about. They could have attacked him from a position of substance, and they chose not to.
If they had approached this from a Joe Rogan perspective, they would have maintained the moderates, but they decided to side with the woke left instead.
Of course.
And you know, Nate Silver, I think it was Nate Silver, had this post-mortem, and he said when he was posting information on the elections, he got to basically do this experiment between his more conservative-leaning audience and his left-leaning audience and see how they responded to the news. Not necessarily his audience, but how the general population was responding to people who followed him. He said when he would put out stuff that somewhat agree with Republicans, they're excited. They're super happy. If you put out something that only somewhat agree with the Democrats, they lose their mind and they'd attack you over it.
Yeah.
So the Democrats are like 100% or nothing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that's why Trump won, because Trump said, I'll take whatever I can get. What happens? Trump goes to the Libertarian Convention. He got booed by libertarians and he got cheered at the same time and he got laughs. But these people at the Libertarian Convention were like, we don't like Trump. Trump's not our guy. And then Trump came out and said, I'm going to pardon Ross Ulbricht. And then they all started cheering. He said, I'll give you something. I'll give you anything.
Yeah.
And he ended up actually getting the libertarians because they nominated Chase Oliver, who many people thought was too far left on social issues. And then you end up with Dave Smith, of all people. Mm-hmm. Dave Smith saying he voted for Donald Trump.
Right.
Sitting down with Joe Rogan.
I saw that.
When you get Joe Rogan, who's a Bernie supporter,
Yep.
and you get Dave Smith, anti-war, anti-Trump libertarian, both agreeing, well, he's our best bet, you have unified the country.
The other thing too is you had the left being like, why don't we have a Joe Rogan? And it's like, because you canceled Joe Rogan. That's why you don't have Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what the hell, you fools?
But this is the thing that bothers me too, is I donated the max to Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard. In the 2019 primaries, I was sitting here.
I liked Yang and Tulsi too.
Yeah, Yang was a disappointment. Tulsi's fantastic, but Tulsi had to join the Republicans.
Yeah.
So they're like, why can't we have the article from the Wired was, why can't we have a Ben Shapiro, a Steven Crowder, or so help us a Tim Pool? And I'm like,
You could have.
you did, and then you insulted me. You beat the crap out of me. Joe Rogan kept his mouth shut, and you still insulted him. Look,
Yeah.
I came out right away in 2020 and said, I want Tulsi Gabbard. She's the candidate. Andrew Yang is also great. These are the candidates that I want. When they said no to that, I said, okay, well, Trump it is.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. And they said, you're far right, screw you. And I said, I get it. I'm supporting Donald Trump. You don't like me. But Joe Rogan didn't do that. Joe Rogan the whole time said, I don't know. I don't want to help Trump. I don't want to be involved. And they still called him a Nazi. They still called him far
They
right.
still tried to take his livelihood away.
Yep.
Well, the problem is that the left never gets satisfied because they keep going left, right?
Yeah, they keep just going further.
Yeah. So like someone that's like a leftist now in 5 years is going to be considered far right because they're continuously shifting that window into more and more deranged lunacy. Mm-hmm. So that's the issue with them. And yeah, cancel culture is their main tool on the left. That's what they do. Like with Rogan, all these guys that they've tried.
Someone chatted, Tim didn't tell us about the max donation back then. Absolutely not true. I was talking about how Tulsi's mom called me thanking for the donation. I wanted the Democratic Party to pull back out of this tailspin, stop embracing racial segregation and other weird crackpot policies. And I said, Why are they doing this? They're supposed to be like the funny, edgy, comedians like Jon Stewart calling out the stodgy Republicans. What's happening? Nope. The Republicans said, you know what? We were wrong about that. Let's all have fun and make jokes together. And I said, I'm down. What about you, Democrats? And Democrats said, you're a Nazi. Get out of my room. And I said, okay.
But, that's the thing, right? And that's what Phil was talking about, is the Democrats in this election consistently lied about Trump, about who he is, about what he said, about what he stands for, misquoted him, did everything they possibly could to frame him a certain way. But after 2020, after the past 4 years, after COVID, I think the American people were just like, no, I'm not going to just believe you because you say things anymore. I'm going to do the work for myself. I'm going to understand it for myself. And so no one believed them when he said all of these things. It was like, it was Peter crying wolf. That's really what it seemed like.
What do you guys think about John Ratcliffe? So the other news from the Post Millennial is that Trump has tapped former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe to lead the CIA. And I was actually much more excited for Kash Patel.
I agree with you on Kash Patel. I think you need to put him either with the CIA or maybe the head of the FBI. That'd be actually kind of funny.
I hope.
Given all the wars he had with the FBI. But yeah, I mean, you need to put. I saw he wants to implement this like a 24-hour declassification room, which I think or agency or component.
What is that?
So basically, what it would be is like it's documents continuously getting declassified. And I could say this is a guy that used to deal with classified documents. They classify stuff all the time for no fucking reason, man. Yeah. I'll be honest with you guys. Like, it's a lot of the times it's like, why is this classified? I'll never forget those piece of information one time I gave to the FBI on a target. And then I remember I was like on the phone with the guy and I said, hey, can you, what was it about that guy? Blah, blah. He's like, oh yeah, that's classified. I was like, dude, I gave it to you. How are you going to tell me? Like, what the fuck?
That's
like,
really
what the
funny.
hell? But like the FBI is notorious for that. Like, they'll get information and they'll classify it just because they don't want to share. So there's a huge problem with the classification of documents and how that's all handled. We still haven't got the JFK documents. We still don't have all the 9/11 documents. So, well, we know why. That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, there needs to be way more accountability and transparency when it comes to that.
Well,
that's what something Tucker Carlson was saying too, is that there's just too many classified documents. There's too many things that don't need to be classified.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely. And like the fact that like the JFK documents aren't declassified after all these years, pretty much everyone is dead from that era. Like, declassify them.
Yeah, the fact that everything is classified is just because the government doesn't want to answer questions to the American people.
Yes, that's a big reason.
Because FOIA requests exist because you can request information. The only thing the government can do to keep the American people in the dark is to classify it. So they just classify everything.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.